The Honest Woodcutter. Once upon a time, there lived a humble woodcutter in a small village near a dense forest. Every day, he would venture into the woods to chop firewood, which he sold in the market to earn a modest living. The woodcutter was known throughout the village for his honesty and hard work. One day, while chopping wood by the river, the woodcutter's axe slipped out of his hands and fell into the deep, rushing water. The woodcutter was devastated, as his axe was his only means of making a living. He sat down on the riverbank, burying his face in his hands, and began to cry. Suddenly, a gentle voice called out to him, "Why are you crying, dear woodcutter?" He looked up and was astonished to see a beautiful fairy hovering above the water. She had a kind smile on her face and a glow around her that made the water sparkle. The woodcutter explained his misfortune. "My axe fell into the river, and without it, I cannot work and earn money to feed my family." The fairy smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will help you." She dove into the river, and when she emerged, she held a gleaming golden axe in her hands. "Is this your axe?" she asked. The woodcutter shook his head and replied, "No, that's not my axe. Mine was just a simple iron one." The fairy smiled at his honesty and dove into the river again. This time, she brought up a silver axe. "Is this your axe?" she asked. The woodcutter looked at the silver axe and said, "No, that's not mine either. Mine was just a plain iron axe." The fairy nodded, impressed by his honesty. She dove into the river one last time and brought up his old, worn iron axe. "Is this your axe?" she asked. The woodcutter's face lit up with joy. "Yes, that's my axe. Thank you so much," he exclaimed. The fairy smiled warmly and said, "Because you were honest and did not take what did not belong to you, I will give you the golden and silver axes as a reward." The woodcutter was overjoyed and thanked the fairy with all his heart. He returned home with all 3 axes and shared the story with his family and friends. The villagers were amazed by his honesty and celebrated his good fortune. From that day on, the woodcutter was no longer poor. He lived comfortably with his family, always remembering the lesson that honesty is the best policy. And the fairy, she continued to watch over the forest, helping those who were kind and true. And so, the woodcutter and his family lived happily ever after, knowing that honesty and integrity are more valuable than any treasure.